Am I live? Great. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Kirk, for having me. Thank you, Rajiv. As Kirk mentioned, flip forward here. Kirk mentioned we just changed our name last month. We were the Online Publishers Association. Many of you knew us as OPA, OPA. We are now Digital Content Next. I'll tell you more about us in just a moment. But first, Kirk asked me to talk about the new publisher. The new publisher, I will tell you at the end of this presentation why the number 65 is the most important number to the new publisher. I'm going to speak a little bit about who we are briefly. That's my native advertising for the day. And then I'm going to tell you about a problem that I see, and then the solution, hopefully, when you walk out of here. So first, Digital Content Next. We are, and we're the only association that exclusively represents the digital content companies. Exclusively represents the digital content companies. All of our members wake up in the morning and think about the creation and monetization of content. And in doing so, we think both about what the problems are of today, trying to solve those, and about the future. So very forward-looking in our agenda. Our main initiatives and the things we focus on are research, both public and member-only research. We had a great session on Wednesday where we actually released a white paper about time-based measurement, which has been getting a lot of attention. Time-based metrics, what if everything was sold based on time? We had a great panel. It was very thought-provoking, and we were talking about possible ways that the industry could develop. We also do a lot of strategic advocacy work, primarily in DC. We partner with the agencies and the marketers. We connect. This is a really important part of what we do at Digital Content Next. We connect our members. They call us and they say, I'm thinking about programmatic. I'm thinking about building my own data platform. I'm thinking about my social media strategy. Who can I talk to at other great content companies that can make me smarter? And then finally, and probably most importantly, we promote. We promote the great work that's being done in this industry. That sizzle reel that started off that looked like a pregame to the Super Bowl was, that's the exciting stuff that's fun to talk about. The great things we're doing inside of our industry, and that's a big part of what we do. Our brands, this is what makes up our organization. This is what powers who we are. These are some of the greatest brands in media and a lot of the new native digital brands, the ones that were born out of our new world. We come to you from the newspaper business, magazines, television, radio, and again, some that were just launched in the last few years. Vox just joined, Business Insider. But all these companies are now digital content companies. That's all they do. They think about the creation and monetization of content. They compete on the same pipes, the same devices. And they all, at the end of the day, are competing across these devices, whether or not they're wearables, smartphones, desktops, laptops, tablets. They're all in the same business now. So the problem, let's cut to the problem. So I've been talking about this a lot lately. Trust. There's really three main stakeholders that make digital media go round. There's three. There's the media company, the brand that the consumers decide to visit. There's the marketer, the advertiser, and there's the consumer. And I would put to you that all three of them are a little bit unhappy, to a lot unhappy. For what we're building, we can do better. Let's start with the marketer and the advertiser. Who in this room is a marketer or an advertiser? Wow, okay. So let's take that into account. I was at ANA Summit last week. It's the Association of National Advertisers. Hopefully a few of you were there. Was anybody there at ANA last week? Okay, got two hands. 2,800 people were there. A lot of marketers. A lot of people that make our business go around. They were not talking about tech. They get it. Some of them don't, but they get it. They were talking about technology as a tactic They were talking about emotion. They were talking about humanity. They were talking about brands. They were talking about driving influence. That's what they were talking about. They're out there right now. If you're a CMO, put your CMO hat on. They're reading articles in the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times about fraud. They're reading articles about fraud. They found out a couple years ago that maybe between 20 up to 80% of the inventory on certain ad networks wasn't viewable. Digital media was supposed to be the thing that was going to be great for their business. It was going to be more dynamic. It was going to be an opportunity to do things that they couldn't do in the past and get feedback immediately. They still get that. That's exciting to them, but it's a headache. It shouldn't be a headache to the marketers. Let's skip to the publishers, since we don't have a lot of marketers in the room. Who in the room is a publisher? All right, much better. Actually, I should filter that. Who in the room is a company that wakes up in the morning and thinks about the creation and monetization of content? All right, I make that distinction because I know a lot of people call themselves publishers that sell the inventory, distribute the inventory, but I'm talking about the companies that actually create the professional content. There's real cost in doing that. The publishers are dealing right now with the viewability issue. That's a major headache right now. I'm a huge fan of viewability. I think it's critical to the industry. But right now they're dealing with the headaches of viewability. They've lost, let's say, 20, 30% of their inventory sometimes overnight because of viewability. They're dealing with the fraud discussion, often unfairly. You know, these are premium publishers that are being brought up in a discussion about fraud. That's frustrating. Their CPMs have been declining for a long time. The shift to mobile, which is a great thing in driving new innovation. Mobile advertising performs at a CPM 30% of desktop and tablet. 30%. And there's these companies, mobile, and what they do in digital is supposed to be the future of the company. You know, our brands that come from the offline world are trying to evolve into digital media. Sometimes they're trying to save their business. And the .com born companies are trying to build real sustainable businesses. That calculus it's not even calculus, it's math. That math is not good when you're losing 30% of your impressions to viewability, 30%, 20% to fraud. CPMs are not rising. So they're frustrated. The publishers are frustrated. Consumers, the third group. Who in the room is a consumer of digital media? If you don't raise your hand, then the door is over there. So consumers, pretty happy, right? We got cool gadgets. Cool gadgets. You know, the new services, the new devices, what we're able to do with them is incredibly powerful. We're doing great things for the consumer as far as building new product. But what consumer doesn't totally feel comfortable with is, and there's the privacy discussion happens, but I think the consumer's not terribly focused on that, is my perspective. They're just happy to have the new gadgets. But beyond that, the consumer, if we slide forward, I'll move on to the next. I'll lay out the consumer. So what we did when we rolled out our new brand is we rolled out these 5 trust principles. I'm going to talk about them to you right now. These 5 principles, I think, are important to our organization, but they're also important, I think, to everybody in this room, and hopefully they strike a chord. So the open internet. The open internet, this is most easily defined by the net neutrality discussion. I am not going to go into the complexity of net neutrality with you today. It is complicated, but I will tell you that the open internet is critical to the publisher. Kirk asked me to talk about the new publisher. The new publisher must be able to reach their audience with the same fair pipes as any other company. They should have equal access and equal speeds over those pipes. That is critical. So back to the consumer. The consumer, we must advocate for their respect. Everything we do as brands, we need to take that into account. Without the consumer, we don't have our business. Without the consumer, we don't have our business. I don't argue that you can build a fancy new technology platform and sell it to Google or Facebook. There's a fine exit there. But if you want to build a sustainable and meaningful publisher business where you've got content that you're creating and monetizing and making profit and paying for your employees and doing great work, and a brand that will actually live to the next generation, then you have to care about the consumer's respect. I would argue, and I've argued this publicly, that Facebook's like button on pages on the web, collecting and using data, is beyond the consumer's expectation when you don't click on the button. I know that it's totally acceptable in their terms of use, in their 15-page privacy policy. That was my other point about the consumer side, is 15-page privacy policies and terms of use that nobody can understand. It's in there, but if you're browsing the New York Times or ESPN, you have to understand the consumer does not expect their data to be collected and used by Facebook while they're on that page and not clicking on that button. So nobody here works for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, right? That can't possibly be true. Okay, I tried to pick a site that I didn't think would be here. So this is the St. Louis Post-Dispatch's homepage. This is one click on their homepage last week. 130 plus calls to third parties, tags, and cookies. I get into this discussion a lot. I totally understand how digital media works. I understand the difference between first party and a third party, a direct relationship and indirect relationship. I appreciate how important the third parties are to what we do. I appreciate it. I know that third parties are critical to what we're doing in programmatic and the awesome products that are being created. This is not a point about third parties. But if you're on that page, if you're one of those dots, especially the trackers and the data collectors, and you're not doing something for the marketer or the consumer or the publisher, if you're not doing something on that page for the marketer, the consumer, or the publisher in a way that's transparent with one of them, then you have no business being on that page. Absolutely no business. That's a ghostery graphic. I'm sure they're happy to create any of those for you. But I don't know anybody that's been on any side of this debate with me that would look at that graphic and say, that's okay. The consumer doesn't mind. That's privacy. That's fine. No way. So then let's get to the marketer. This is our responsibility as a new publisher. It's our responsibility. Again, the marketer, we owe them to shine a light on our entire ecosystem and how to do things the right way. How to do things the right way. To build this new media business in a way that's sustainable and builds trust. The marketer, again, pays for everything we do. That frustration that they have, we need to help solve it. We need to be a part of the solution. Viewability, again, is part of that solution. Now, I will suggest that when an agency, and there's a few of them right now, are taking advantage of the shift to viewability and using it simply as a way to create noise and actually negotiate better CPMs, that's not helpful. That's actually counterproductive. So we need all of the partners to work on viewability together to stick to the standards, not to try to stretch them simply to get a negotiating win. But again, back to our responsibility as publishers, we need to shine a light here. We need to help defend their practices and be a part of the solution. This is a quote from Michael Roth, CEO and chairman of Interpublic, 2 days ago. Highlight the words programmatic, distrust, black box. The CEO and chairman of IPG made this point. We need to pay attention to this point. It's really important when somebody like this makes this point in the beginning of his earnings statement. So pay attention. This is what we're trying to do, but we need a single voice for the content companies. The companies that are actually paying for the production of what we do and what we create for the internet. So that's a single voice at the table representing the press, to the press, the policymakers, to the marketers, to the advertisers. And then finally, and I think this is a perfect example of this when I look at this agenda in this room, a trusted forum among the industry, among publishers, among folks that are thinking about new ways to innovate and monetize their advertising to build this marketplace. This is what we try to do as an organization. This is what I see when I see agendas like this. When I get invited to lead off, and I know some of these remarks can be sobering, it's a trusted forum to talk about the industry. We need that diligence to keep building it in the right way. So what we're doing is hopefully shaping the future. Trust drives opportunity. I hope you walk out of the room and understand that is an opportunity. I argue with all of our members, all of our publishers, you should run to programmatic. Run to programmatic. Despite everything I just showed you, that's what I'm saying is run to programmatic. The automation, the unlocking of capital, the efficiencies that come with it are profound and will help pay for the content of the future. But with automation, with building algorithms comes a responsibility, and the trust is what actually will drive that. You need that to be a part of what you do. And as a group, as an industry, doing this in the right way, we can build something pretty profound. So back to why this number is so important. So 3 data points. The first one, lesser known but important. 65% of all digital advertising is sold based on performance. It's sold based on direct response metrics. That means that there's no premium associated with 65% of digital advertising. There's no premium associated to where that advertising runs, to the content that it sits on, to the brand that it sits on. It's entirely targeted to try to generate some sort of performance, click, action, targeting a cookie, typically. The 35% is what pays for original content. There has to be some sort of premium assigned to the content in the brand, in the site, or the app. If there isn't, it's always going to be more efficient to buy that cookie somewhere else than it will be on a premium publisher site. You'll always be able to find it through some sort of traffic generation game elsewhere on the web. So that 65% is a big and profound number. It's from the IAB's annual study, which you should pour through every time it comes out. It's a phenomenal report they do every year. The second data point, the industry has grown, digital advertising industry has grown, conveniently for me, for my presentation, has grown 65% in the last 3 years, according to the same IAB report. 65%. I suggest you go back to your offices today, you're doing your long-term planning, your 2015 planning, See if you've grown by 65% in the last 3 years. I would bet, having watched this industry for a long time, that most of you haven't in the last 3 years. That's because, unless you work for Google or Facebook, some of the big ad tech companies, and maybe, well, Twitter I would throw in there, any company that has that first data point, has the direct response market, has collection and use of data as part of their DNA, they're driving that number. 72% of digital advertising goes to the top 10 companies, none of which are content companies. So pay attention. That 65% is very much related to the first 65%. And then third, this is the most important 65. eMarketer, many of you probably saw last week, predicted that 65% of digital advertising will be sold programmatically in 2016. That's not changing. That's where the market is going. That's why you should be in this room. That's why you need to be thinking about this and the complexity of it. But I urge you to pay attention to that trust discussion and think about what we're building. Think about building it the right way so that is sustainable and it goes towards the content creators and what drives this business. That's all I have. Thank you.